What if three T-Rexes in their prime were dropped into the Jurassic period, 80 million years before their time? In that hellscape teeming with giant beasts, could these three ultimate killing machines, refined by relentless evolution, rely on brute force, superior brains, and flawless tactics to conquer and rule from start to finish? Space suddenly tore open beneath towering coniferous giant trees. Three adult T-Rexes, 13 meters long and weighing 9 tons each, crashed heavily onto the North American continent 150 million years ago. In their original world, these three Cretaceous tyrants were likely uncompromising solitary monarchs, each guarding their own hunting ground where a narrow encounter meant life or death. But the space-time rift wiped clean all rules regarding their territories, rivals, and memories, plunging them completely into an unfamiliar primeval wilderness. As three pairs of eyes met in panic, an instinct deeply engraved in the predator's nature instantly kicked in. The survival instinct overrode millions of years of wariness between peers, and the three Lone Kings were forced to bind together as a pack. In the very first second of their arrival, this time-crossing hunting squad had their perceptions shattered by the world before them. The air was stiflingly humid, thick with the scent of ferns and gymnosperms rushing toward them, and the higher humidity made every breath harder to cool down than they remembered. But what truly made the pupils of these three flesh-and-blood juggernauts shrink was the ancient ecosystem slowly moving across the horizon, a herd of Diplodocus. Each one dragged a slender body over 25 meters long, and once the tail occupying over half of their body length swung open, it was like a giant whip capable of shattering the air. Just the lightning-like tremors of their passing caused the three T-Rexes to instinctively lower their centers of gravity. Further away, several Brachiosaurus moved slowly with towering necks, each weighing as much as 3 or 4 adult T-Rexes, living, breathing mountains of flesh. As for the size of these giants, Cretaceous creatures were hardly unfamiliar with them. Yet everything before them, unfamiliar vegetation, strange smells, and a sense of suffocating displacement, reminded these three far-traveled rulers that this was not their era. To survive, they had to climb back to the top of the food chain as total outsiders. Hunger was scorching their massive bodies, and the space-time leap had nearly exhausted their energy reserves. But before this hastily assembled hunting squad could lock onto a target, the Jurassic gave them a harsh reality check. The fern bushes shook violently as 7 Allosaurus fanned out to encircle them, the true sovereigns of Jurassic North America. 10 meters long, agile, and accustomed to hunting in packs, to them, these three invaders with strange scents and outrageously large heads were merely walking targets that had wandered into their territory. The lead Allosaurus lunged first, opening its upper jaw filled with serrated, blade-like teeth, and hacked down viciously at the neck of the nearest T-Rex. This was the signature kill move of the Allosaurus. Its bite force wasn't exceptionally strong, but it could slice like a high-speed battle axe, using the teeth in its upper jaw to carve out fatal lacerations. For any native Jurassic prey, a single strike like this would cause fatal blood loss. Yet what it faced today was the ultimate predator that had locked 80 million years of evolutionary essence deep into its genes. The attacked Cretaceous tyrant merely tilted its head aside, its thick neck muscles absorbing the brunt of the impact. Instead of chasing the agile opponent, it steadily waited for the exact moment the Allosaurus closed in due to its own momentum, snapping its abyss-like jaws shut. This was the strongest bite on Earth's land, a bite force exceeding 50,000 newtons, paired with banana-thick bone-crushing teeth. It didn't bother with delicate hacking, it directly crushed the Allosaurus's entire shoulder, bone and meat alike, into powder. Allosaurus packs were also skilled group hunters, but their groups functioned more like a chaotic mob rushing in without real role division. The three invaders, however, were different. In the first few hours of being thrown into this hell, the pressure of survival had forced them to forge a crude yet lethal coordination. The brain granted by 80 million years of evolution, eyes capable of precise stereoscopic depth perception, and a sense of smell that could detect scents kilometers away, were put to use together by three individuals for the first time. Relying almost entirely on glances and positioning rather than roars, they pinned the Allosaurus into a triangle where it had no opening to bite. When two Allosaurus tried to flank from the side, a Cretaceous killer was already waiting there. Without rushing to lunge, it used its distance-calculating eyes to tightly lock onto the opponent's rhythm. Waiting precisely for the half-second when the Allosaurus leaned forward with too much momentum and failed to retract its feet, it darted out its neck like a shadow and bit clean through the opponent's spine. The lords of the Jurassic finally realized that their proud wheel tactics and blood drain trading completely fell apart in front of this terrifying output of one-hit one-kill and the calm composure exploiting vulnerabilities. Within mere minutes, half of the 7 or 8 Allosaurus were crippled, and the survivors fled in panic, dragging broken limbs and leaving the hunting ground and its littered corpses to the three conquerors. But this was merely an appetizer. They locked eyes on a lone, 25-meter-long Mamenchisaurus. A target of this scale meant certain death if engaged head-on. A single tail swipe could shatter their leg bones, and a single stomp could drive a 9-ton body deep into the mud.
Yet a T-Rex never fought with brute strength alone, it used its brain.
The 3 T-Rexes didn't charge in a mob. They dispersed silently, using the giant trees as cover to herd the Mamenchisaurus toward the edge of a swamp. The first T-Rex lunged fiercely from the side rear, narrowly avoiding the lethal sweep of the tail, and clamped its jaws onto the Mamenchisaurus's tree trunk like hind leg tendon, instantly tearing away a massive chunk of flesh. This blow wasn't meant to be fatal, but to disable its mobility. As the agonizing giant beast prepared to counterattack with a tail swipe, the second T-Rex stepped in from its blind spot, clamping onto the base of the tail and brutally locking down its only weapon. Losing its balance, the mountain of meat crashed heavily into the swamp. The third tyrant leaped in from the optimal angle yielded by its companion, aiming straight for the unshielded neck. With 50,000 newtons of bite force piercing right through, warm blood gushed out.
The entire process took less than 3 minutes.
There was no desperate, bruising brawl, only scalpel-like, calm division of labor. This was the hunting logic sculpted by evolution 80 million years later, a calculation incomprehensible to any beast of the Jurassic. In the days that followed, the rules of this ancient continent were slowly rewritten. The 3 T-Rexes learned to avoid the 4 deadly spikes on a Stegosaurus's tail, deliberately targeting its slow-turning blind spots, and learned to use their sense of smell to lock onto dying or isolated targets kilometers away, minimizing the risk of every attack.
They even figured out a rhythm of taking turns eating and keeping watch, tightly guarding their territory with military discipline.
Once unbeatable Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus would immediately tuck their tails and detour the moment they caught this strange and terrifying scent. Even the T-Rexes learned caution when encountering massive herds of a dozen tightly packed sauropods. No matter how hungry, they never forced a direct fight that was a death whirlpool even they couldn't overcome. They simply waited patiently for the straggler lagging behind the herd. Every beast in the Jurassic learned what fear truly meant under the feet of these 3 time-traveling tyrants. As the sun sank into the edge of the fern forest, the 3 T-Rexes stood shoulder to shoulder on a high slope, overlooking the primeval world beneath their feet that never belonged to them. Armed with a brain 80 million years more advanced than this era and coordination forged in desperate straits, they carved out a throne of their own within a hell guarded by giant beasts. Yet at the exact moment the 3 tyrants secured their hold on the Jurassic throne, the space-time rift did not truly close. It rippled once more through the river of time spanning hundreds of millions of years. This time, those 4 Allosaurus, who had narrowly escaped slaughter but still harbored a bitter grudge, were swept inside. When they tumbled out from the other side of the rift, they were no longer greeted by familiar fern forests, but by a harsher, more alien world 80 million years later, and a name that struck terror into the hearts of all predators. The former rulers of the Jurassic were about to stumble straight into the true hometown of the T-Rex.